typically what I do is in the fall, I will sit down with any of our staff that wants to. We open it up to anyone, receptionists, secretaries, admin, literally janitors if they want to. And I'll go through all my sermon series ideas for 2020. So we're actually doing that next week. So we're going to put them all on my big board here in my office, and we're going to go through them all together. I'm going to talk about, man, I really like this one. I feel like this is what God's speaking to me. And then I'm going to have some that are like, I had this idea. What do you guys think? And so they start giving feedback, and we talk through all the things. What would we do with this? What are some takeaways, some tokens, some big ideas, some tangible things we could give them? Just illustrations on stage, clips, just different things we could do to help drive the message home. And again, it's one thing to have my perspective, but I want different perspectives on our team because they're going to see it differently. And so it's always valuable to have that buy-in. And so we'll have like 15 of us probably in the room. We'll go through all that together. We'll lay out that, next week we'll lay out, here's when we're doing this series for the entire year. So we'll lay out 2020. And if we can, if it's more of a expository series, then we're going to lay out the scripture. So if we're going through the book of Ephesians, we're going to lay out, here's the weeks we're going through this scripture, and we'll go through it all. So we'll lay out as much of that as we can next week in that one day. It'll take about 2 hours to do that. And then what I do is I start an Evernote file for each of those sermon series, and I'll put in as much information as I have on each of those files. And then throughout the year, as I'm studying for something, if I have an idea or a sermon illustration or a scripture that I read that would fit one of those sermons, I'll go into it right then on my phone or on my iPad and put it in for that week or for that sermon series. And so the closer I get, the more robust that file's getting. And so by the time I actually get to the week of, a lot of times I'm only spending 3 or 4 hours tops prepping for that week's message because I've already been prepping for it. I've already plugged in some sermon illustrations, some ideas, some thoughts, whatever it might be, books that I need to read leading up to it, those kind of things. So by the time I actually get to the week of, I'm usually only spending 3 or 4 hours prepping for that specific message. So for me, Tuesday is my sermon prep day normally, where I block off, I don't have appointments, and I just do sermon prep. And when I'm finished with that week's message, I always work ahead toward, okay, what are some things I need to work on? So we've got a big vision series in October that I'm already like, it's filled out. Like I'm feeling good about it. We've got a generosity series in November that I've been working on. And so usually one day a week I'm working on messages, but usually the week of it's only 3 or 4 hours tops that I'm working on that weekend's message.